Hello friends, I am Manoj Mittal. So today we are going to talk about in this video how to connect the SPFX with the authenticated Azure API. So there are a certain configurations we need to do before consume the authenticated API into the SPFX. So let's see that one and understand why this diagram. So we have a SharePoint where the SPFX control is get deployed to consume the data from the external APIs and which is authenticated hosted in the Azure itself. So SPFx control, which is going to deploy it into the SharePoint, having their own Azure AD app registration, which will help us to generate the token. And it has connected with the Web API Azure AD app registrants via the scope, right? So Web API is also get authenticated via the app registrations here. So let's see in action how it's work end to end. So I move to the the screen. So let's create the Web API first. So I am using the Visual Studio 2022. So I selected the create new projects and select here the next and just type it here API AAD, just anything, just a client 04, any name I gave. I select the next here, right? So once I come up here, I select the authentication type is Microsoft Identity Platform and I select as a create. So it will create all boilerplate solutions and code for authentications in the backend for us. Just we need to configure it and start using that sections, right? I click on finish. So it will take a couple of seconds to come back here on the screen, right? So if we will see here on the app setting.json, so it's added the Azure AD, which we need to configure instance, domain, tenant ID, and client ID, a client ID for us. The scope that's we can use this one in our Azure AD app registration. So this settings is going to come from the Azure AD app registrations, and we have a sample boilerplate solutions with the the controller which is going to return the data to us weather forecast. So we can use that one. So as per for this POCs in this video, it's a more than sufficient to take the hard coded data, right? So let's configure the app setting. For that, we need to go to the Azure AD app registration and create a separate app registration for the Web API. So let's move to that sections. I logged into the portal.azure.com and move to the Azure AD. And from here, I will come to the app registrations and click on the new registrations. Here I'll give the API AD client, so something so I can understand this is related to the API. I selected the single tenant at this moment, and yes, click on register. Right, as I register, it will create the Azure AD app instance. Let's take the tenant ID from here and place it into the tenant. Just replace these values here. Okay, let me copy again those settings. Oh, it's copied something couple of time. Let's control V. Let me take the client ID now. Client ID is this one, application ID. It's copied and put it as a client ID here. Yeah, so this is placed. Domain, the something what I have as I logged in, my domain is M365 into 615.171.0 dot on Microsoft.com, and I'll use my domain, and rest of the things I'll delete from here. Now I'm good with this section here, and this sections, if I go to my program.cs, it's going to call out from here itself. So this is more than sufficient to call the Azure AD, the references which we have added. Right now, the next sections, we'll just take a look at just a class which is going to return this type of data to us. That's okay. So at the top, authorizations is it's also there. Now, what we have a scope. Let's create a scope into the Azure AD app registrations also with this name itself. Right. I'll go back to the Azure AD app registration here. I click on expose an API. Let's set the application ID URI. I click on save. It's a API colon slash slash, nothing like my client ID of this particular app registration. click on add scope. So give the name here and just select the who can consent, admin and user. For so these four text boxes, I'll just put it as a test at this moment, but we can give the meaningful name once the admin or user is going to consent, approve, so they can understand what this is for what purpose. So I click on add scope. So as I click on add scope, now if I move to the API permissions, so this API AD client 04 should be available in the app permissions. Take a couple of seconds and it will come back. In the meantime, let's do one thing, create an web API and host the solutions also. Right. I move to the portal.azure.com, select the web app from here, and I give the name again, API. We can give any name, AD client 04. So this is my API name. I'll select the code, runtime stack. I'm going to use .NET 6. So let's load the other settings. Resource group, I'll just select my resource group as a demo something. So plans, so just select, I'll select the nearest locations for me, which is South India. That's fine. Rest of the things is okay. I'll click on next. That's okay. This is fine. This is fine. We don't need app registration just for this demo purpose, so that's why it's off. This is fine. We'll just click on review and create now. Let's click on create. So yeah, so this the web app is going to create, which is going to use as a web API. So let it's created. So in the meantime, if I go back into the app registrations, click on the add permissions, and let's see here, click on the my API, and here, yeah, so we can see here this sections is appeared. I selected as a delegate permissions, access as a user which I created, add permissions, and it start appearing here, and then grant the permissions. All right, so we are done with the app registrations of the API here. Let's go back to the web API here. This also created. Go to the Go resource, and for the time being, as a quicker deployment, I download the publish profile and select this publish profile while publishing this web API, right? So I'm not going to change any other thing in the code. So this is more than sufficient. We have authorized so this particular controller. So if I browse without providing any valid token, it should give me 401 that is unauthorized, right? So yeah, let's make it one content should be sufficient to get it back. So let's go and build this solution. Yeah, it succeed. Let's go and publish. Yeah, I select import profile. Next. Yeah, from my download sections. So I'll select one, finish. I'll click on publish. Yep, it's going to publish the solutions to the created web app. So I'll just take it out my endpoint to validate whether it's give 401 to us or not. Go to the controller and just take this as this is a get method, which is going to return the data which we have at the bottom here, right? The weather forecast. So I take it up to it one. So once yeah, it has deployed. So let's go back here, take this API, type it here, slash, take the endpoint, which is a weather forecast, and type it here. Yeah, let's see. See, so it's giving us the data as the response as a 401. It means API has deployed and there is a no proper token has passed through to the API. That's why it gives us the 401. This is valid and this is the same what we are expecting here, right? Now let's move to the SPFx and consume this API, authenticated API, into the SPFx itself. Right, let's open the Visual Studio code, and I have created the Visual Studio code. That's the base solution, so we can use the same. So it's the sample boilerplates, the framework solutions. I didn't add anything at this moment here, and we can just start adding. That's our the required code, and start using these sections. Right, so yeah, so let's start, and we can use that one. So let's go. First of all, let's create one web part context here, which we are going to pass it from here and consume in our the tsx file. Right. For that, we can just place it here itself in our Dell client. This is my section, web part context. So that's fine. So let's create in our the web properties one what we have. Let's expand src web parts. Here the sections will get. We have a property sections. Yep, we have a props. So let's add then props also. That sections, web part context. Yeah, this is fine. And add the import for the web part. This is the top. Yep. So this is get resolved, and here in the TS file, this is also fine. We are getting this sections. Now let's move to the the TS file and create the entire code of calling that sections. Right, for that, so I have a code snippets. I will just copy paste here with respect to the time. Instead of typing here, I'll go above. I'll call it the tsx files, and what we need to call it out here, uh, basically we can call the AD HTTP client. A HTTP client response is sufficient to call the uh, authenticated API here. Right, so that should be fine. So let's create a one more the interface. So the reason to create an interface, we have an API and is going to return the response in a certain format. So to consume that one, so what are the properties? We have date, temperatures, cell in Celsius, temperature in Fahrenheit, and the summary for all these points. Right, so I'll create an export one interface. So we can create a separate TS file and consume it here, or we can use it here itself to write the code base and start using. So just for a demo, I'm just going through here. So we created one interface with the weather forecast details. It's having all the 4 properties which is exposed by the API. Right, so I'll go back here. Yeah, I'll call it into the this particular as a array into the weather forecast. Now come back and just do the changes. So here we need our the states which we are going to create, right? And the props here, right? We have the props. Let's create a states and start using that one also here. So let's copy this one. We need to create, we will create here. Yep, just I type as a state. Yeah, so that's fine. So let's create a component did mount as a method. So this method, what it will do, it will just it will call the API using the adl client. So this method is responsible for that sections, right? So let me take the code snippet for this and just add it down here on the top of the render method. Yeah, so you can see here we have a component did mount methods. So what's the web part context we have passed from the TS file? It's coming up here, and we need to call the client. So our client is what? So here is a web API which we have created. API colon slash slash our the client ID supposed to come here. So let's take the client ID from here itself. So let's go to the this sections we can take it. Yep. Let's go back down. Yeah, this is done. And now we have here we are going to use the AD HTTP client, which is going to hit. We put the logs to see what's coming up here just for the just checking person in the console, but not required at the productions level. And here, what is important for us to client.get call is okay, we need to pass the API endpoint here. So let's take the API endpoint. So we have API endpoint is this. Yeah, so just passed it down here and we'll pass it AD HTTP client configurations.v1. So this is done from here, right? So now we have done and we have defined all the and when we are getting the value, so what we did when we get the response, so at this moment, instead of taking all the values so from the array, we are just taking the one values and getting store it, for example, the summary. So as per the demo, this should be sufficient, and but we can build it more. So objective is how to take the data from authenticated APIs, and it's going to set it up into the states itself. And then let's use this particular state at the bottom sections, right? So at least we'll get the result, how it's going to come up for this. So let's go down and place it somewhere. So for example, let's replace this particular line, right? Place it here, the state codes. If my state is null or state.weather forecast is null, just type some dummy message, hi 1 2 3 4 5. Otherwise, just give it back to me. So what's we have, right, that the w dot summary, which the message is going to come from the top, that is going to play the showcase to us, right? Yeah. So let's go here and save it. 1 minute. So let's the state. Let me correct this sections. I created, yep, this section. So my state is this one. Error is there. Let's save it. So till now we just call the API, and with respect to permissions also, yeah, this is also get resolved here, right? So this is the one thing, and another is the, let's go to the config sections and package.solutions, and here also we need to define what permissions we are going to use, and we need to provide it here. But before that, let's create a app registrations for the SPFx and call the expose an API which we have done for the web API into the SPFx and then call it out here. So let's go back before doing anything here. So I'll go back again to the app registrations. Here, click on the new registrations. Here I will call SPFx AD Client 04. Right. Click on register. Yeah, so here the client ID, tenant ID, object ID all has created. That is fine. So here also, let's go back and create first set the application URI. This is nothing like API // client ID and add as a scope. So this is going to call into our SPFX solutions, right? So once we call it here add as a scope, we can give again the name, just user impersonation. So any name is okay here. I'll just call it out test. Here is a test, test, test. Click on add scope. Yeah, this is done here. And now once I go back to the API permissions, so here we need to add the scope which we have created as well as the web API one. So click on the add permissions and go to the any API. Here we will get the the web API scopes. So select that one. So it can be come here. Yep. So we need to add the what scope we have created for this particular app registrations as a users SPFx client 4. Yep. Delegate. Select this one. And this is one, right? Yeah. Click on users. Click on yes. Grant permission consent. So this is now done. So let's go back to the SPFX solutions and take these sections, what we have, authenticated API and the SPFX user 4. This will become as a permissions in the scope level for us, right? So let's me go back there in the SPFX solution. And let me take the snippet which we need to add. Here we have a skip feature deployment. I'll just edit this section here itself. Now we have added user underscore impersonations, access as a users. So let's add the resource type. And what's the resource type for us? We can go to the Azure AD, and what's the name is appearing, we can select the same. SPFx AD client 04 for the user impersonations. So let's type it here. Another one for the API, we have AD client 04. Yep, this one also edit. Yep, so these are the permissions which the tenant administrator or a global admin who is having access need to grant it. So let's see, save it. I can see one, there is some error I can see. No, it's looks fine. Okay, this is okay. So let's build these solutions. I'll select the view terminal, click on the gulp build. It will take a couple of seconds to build the solutions. Then we'll follow with a bundle shape, package solutions hyphen shapes, and once it's done, we'll take one of the the SharePoint online site collections. In that particular app catalog, we'll push it this solution and see. Yep, it started. Yeah, just move gulp bundle here. Okay, so the one more thing which I missed, instead of make the demo, okay, intentionally showing the error. So there is a one setting and configurations which I have missed in the Azure AD at the Web API level. Let's go there. The Web API 4, which I have created right under the resource group demo. Yeah, so the course settings is important. So that's I have missed. So let's put it over the SharePoint sites. Let me browse this one. M365 into 615.171.0 dot on my SharePoint.com. Yeah. So this will be our URL, and let's go allow origin. We need to place it that one without slash and just save it. Otherwise, our web part will throw the error back. Right, the bundle has done. Now to the gulp package solution hyphen hyphen ship. Right, so our package and bundling all has done here. There is one error. So it's once we use the bundle, it gives the error existing with the code one. What is that error? Okay, HTTP client option is defined but never used. So it's better to build a solution without any error and without any warning. So let's understand what this error it is. HTTP client option. Okay, so this one I have added, but I didn't use. Let's remove it and do the Control S and just build it again from the scratch. Gulp build. I'll just make it big. Use the gulp bundle. Here in the meantime, I'll just open the catalog. Okay, it's done. So let's complete this one first. Package hyphen solution hyphen ship, right? Yep, so our package is ready. Package will be in this SharePoint folder. Let's select this one, Reveal in Explorer. So here you will get your package is exist, right? We need to take it up this one. So let's go to the catalog and deploy this section. I'll go to my communication site. Here I have already the site level app catalog is enabled. I'll go down. I'll select this one, apps for SharePoint. I'll select for the new uh, upload, choose. So that particular file, what I have. Yeah, let's select this one. So it will automatically come at the site level. Yep. So this has done. Let's go back to the site and create a one new page, and we'll just deploy the control there and let's see, right? So before that, we need to grant the permissions also. AD client demo. So I just click it here. Let's go to the admin center and approve the permissions. So now we landed to the SharePoint admin center, and here under advanced, we have API access. Under API access, so it will list it down what we have deployed as a SPFx, and it consists the permissions so that we need to grant as a global admin so that control can use it. So as you can see, both is coming up here. Let's click click on approve. I have approved the SPFx AD client 04, which is going to come here. Now let's move to the page which we have created, and in this page let's add the web part and see the data is appearing for us or not. Let's select the AD client. So we have created AD client 01 as a control. So once I publish this particular sections, yeah, so we can see that data which is the hot, and it's going to come up from the API. Let's refresh. As it's keep refreshing, see it's Bami, right? So let's go back to the API and see what that it consists. So in the controller, if I go back, so here is the data which is going to come from here itself. Like we saw the hot Bami, if we refresh, the another sections will come from this array itself. So let's go back and see again. Yeah, so you can see the sweltering, it's coming up here. So sweltering is there, right? So this is the way how we can call the authenticated API securely into the SPFx via the app registration token generations, right? So hope you like and learn something new here. Thanks for watching this video.